On Sunday, when we were preaching together through Genesis 26, we saw how Isaac values the wells that his servants have discovered and dug. It's a way to remember. It's a way we could profitably use with all our possessions, because he doesn't just give them a value in terms of money or in terms of usefulness to him or convenience. No, he values these wells by relationship. If the well represents a dispute with his neighbours or opposition from them, he names it as such, and valuing it accordingly, he moves on. This water is not precious to him. In fact, water as such doesn't seem to be what he values. When he finds Rehoboth, which signifies to him that the Lord has given us room, he still moves on to Beersheba. He values these wells by relationship, and all relationships ultimately derive their value from his relationship with God. So we started the Bible study this week by beginning just such an audit for ourselves. We considered the nature of our own assets, not wells for us, but cars, homes, material possessions, or jobs, skills, and our physical assets. What if we value them by relationship? What if we ask not just how much it cost or what use I derive from it, but rather what does it represent in terms of my relationship with my neighbours and my relationship with God? Do this and you definitely end up treasuring different things, and in some cases carting out long-held treasures down to the dump. Isaac is good with his wells, but he has one very significant blind spot: his wife. Genesis chapter 26 would read very differently if Isaac valued Rebekah the same way he values wells. And it shouldn't be hard, should it? He knows that Rebekah is very much a gift from God. We can assume that he will know all the details from chapter 24, much better than we do. On that basis alone, it's a little difficult to understand how he comes to behave as he does in chapter 26. Let's think about it. Because we quite often have a similar break between the beliefs we hold in our heads in theory and the beliefs we actually put into practice. You read the first 6 verses here, and you see that by staying in Gerar, rather than going down to Egypt, Isaac is obeying exactly what God has commanded. And so he can surely expect that God will be every bit as faithful towards him as towards his father Abraham. However, something causes him to forget about this expectation and behave as he does in verses 7 to 11. Basically, he is afraid to tell the truth about Rebekah being his wife because she's beautiful, and he cannot trust the men of this place not to kill him on her account. Now, yes, these Philistines and their morals or lack thereof may be a complete unknown to Isaac, but the point is, he can't say the same of God. Surely it's not about trusting the Philistines, it's about trusting God to keep his promises without any help from Isaac's lies. After all, what kind of God needs this kind of help? Yeah, we don't know what choruses Isaac sings or what liturgy he recites, but Isaac's God at this point is evidently not a great big God. As a result, we see that he has 2 different values for Rebekah. Now, he still values her by relationship, but the relationship is entirely the relationship with himself. In verse 7, her beauty represents a risk to himself, and in verse 8, when he thinks they are alone and unobserved, the same beauty represents pleasure for himself. In neither case is she valued the same way that Abraham's servant values her when he bows down and worships the Lord in chapter 24 and verse 26. Rebekah is then disowned by Isaac one minute and owned again the next. Might this possibly explain the fact that they appear to have a somewhat dysfunctional relationship? And what has Abimelech learnt about Isaac? Through whom, remember verse 4, all nations on earth will be blessed. Well, disturbingly, he has learnt that the man cannot be trusted, which may go to explain Abimelech's behaviour in the rest of the chapter. When you have a rich and powerful stranger among you who cannot be trusted, you are afraid. You are very afraid. Ironically, It seems that Abimelech actually could have been trusted after all. So maybe God knew what he was doing when he said, stay in Gerar. Isaac undervalues the power of God's faithfulness and undervalues his wife, and he ends up putting his wife at risk and his hosts at risk, and thus undermining two very important relationships. I think as I complete my audit of possessions, I'll ask God to show me where those blind spots are in me. If you have been, thank you for listening.